What just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
That just happened.
What just happened? I'm Dan. That's Julia. And that's Vex, our guest for True Detective Night Country. If you want to check out her channel, it's linked below. And before we get into it, just to let you guys know, we're doing a giveaway once we hit 3,000 subscribers. We're going to give away $50 on Venmo. All you have to do is subscribe, and one of you will win. Jumping right on into it. This is going to be an interesting review because this episode was a little bit filler in my opinion. We'll see what we all thought about it, but let us know in the comments what you guys thought. And we're also planning on doing a theory video soon, maybe this week if we have enough comments. If not, next week we'll do it. All right, so things actually kick off with a flashback, and we see 7 years ago when Navarro first meets Annie K. She goes to her house to arrest her.
In Masu Kaltok. Yeah. You're under arrest for trespassing and the destruction of private property at the Silver Sky mining facilities.
But it turns out there was a childbirth going on at the time, so she's like, "You're gonna need a minute." Navarro's cool with that. They go through with it, and looked like for a second the baby was gonna die, and that made me super uncomfortable. I'm like, I don't want to see a baby die right now. And luckily they did CPR, everything was okay. And then she puts her hands up. She's like, "Okay, now you can take me." Back to December 22nd. The 5th day of night, and Hank has assembled a ragtag group of locals to help out with the search. He jumps on top of a truck, gives a speech, and he's like, "Hey, Raymond Clark's the suspect. Let's go find this guy."
Suspect is Raymond Clark, 5'11", brown hair, brown eyes, last seen wearing a pink parka.
Then they get a call about the scientist. He lost both of his legs, maybe another arm, and he's not looking good. But then Danvers tells Pete to hack Annie's phone, but there's something on his mind. He wants to know what's up with her and Navarro.
What happened in the last case you worked with Navarro? The Wheeler case? Because that was it for you guys, right?
What happened with you guys? There was a case, the Wheeler case, where it was a murder-suicide, and we find out that this guy was a real piece of shit. He was beating an 18-year-old girl. He sent her to the hospital 2 times. She wouldn't report it.
She was drunk, officer. Fell down the stairs, officer.
But then they got the call and they were too late. But how about that little part of him whispering "twist and shout"? Why do they keep going back to this song? Do you think it was playing when her son was killed?
I think so. It was probably played. Yeah, that would explain why the song keeps coming back and why he's like, "Tell mommy,"
in like such a haunting way too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Just back to the William Wheeler case though. Like in the flashback, it's shown that he was alive when Danvers and Navarro got there.
Yeah.
But Danvers is like, he shot himself, but that clearly wasn't the case. And he was like evilly laughing in this little like ice shack. He was kind of like Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin.
All right, everyone, chill.
So was he actually still alive? Because in the way I took it was that he was dead when they got there, but she was like haunted by him. So
no. The flashback shows that he was alive. So it's more inferred that because of the scale of the situation, because Danvers takes the time to explain sexual assault, battery, robbery. He was taking up with minors and all this stuff. So it's very intentional that this guy's a piece of shit because we see the body of the girl in the doorway. So it's more like in the heat of the moment, because this guy was such a piece of shit and maybe that girl didn't deserve the fate that she got, Danvers will assume shot him, but she says, "Oh, it was a murder-suicide," and they played it up like that. And then Navarro couldn't kind of deal with, I guess, the weight of knowing that, and that's what separates them.
All right, so someone commented something speculating about those two that I have in my notes that's going to come up later, so I'm going to pitch this idea to you guys later. I'll circle back to that. But yeah, this is when they split up, so Navarro gets transferred, and then we see her back in real time, and she's on the search. She tosses an orange, and it gets tossed back to her. There was a lot of weird supernatural stuff this episode. Like,
yes,
it was a lot of strange things going on. So then at the station, they start going through Clark's things.
Let's do this.
And it's funny because when she was putting things in a neat line, if you guys saw our first review, Vex made fun of her putting things in a neat line, and then they ended up scattered in a circle, just like, you know, the what
swirl.
am I trying to say? The swirl, yeah. So we get another shot like that with all the photos all around, and they're like, okay, well, they seem to be in a happy relationship.
She looks happy. They look happy.
But it was a secret relationship. Why?
Why keep it a secret?
Then they find a candid photo that was taken by someone else. So at least one person knew of this relationship.
That's a candid photo. Somebody was there with them that day.
And then they find a pic that has hair dye on it, which connects to this hairdresser. They have a lead. They go see the hairdresser. Navarro's like, "Hey, you lied to me. You say you didn't know anything about this."
You lied to me.
She's like, all right, I knew Clark. I went to Slough to give haircuts. Annie really wanted to come. She came. Her and Clark hit it out. He was fixated on her tattoo. Which tattoo? This one? Yeah, that one. The swirl. Then the woman claims he was crazy about her, but Annie wanted it to be a secret, saying that it was Annie. Annie changed because that's not like Annie to want a secret like this.
That was weird.
So why? And the reason why this woman, this hairdresser, was so quiet about it because she was also seeing someone at the station.
Plus, I was seeing a guy from Salal. Who? Oliver Tagak.
A guy named Oliver. We meet him later on. So he left apparently before Annie died, so he wasn't at the research station when all this went down. And she did call the police. She told them about Clark. Who did she talk to? Hank.
After they found her, I did call the police. I just didn't want to talk to you because you'd have known me, so I didn't leave my name.
So to backtrack a moment, we know that they can use that hockey rink to lay out evidence and stuff. We see Danvers do that in a previous episode, laying out photos on the bench. So instead, they take the 19 boxes of evidence they got from Clark's abandoned trailer and shove both of them into this tiny 6 by 6 foot room. And apparently 19 boxes of stuff contain jack shit because they were able to lay it out on the floor perfectly. And then all the interesting stuff too that were the tie-ins to season 1 with the wrapped up bodies, none of that comes into the picture. That giant wrapped voodoo doll on the bed, nowhere to be seen in any shots of the evidence. This is also a character that has not been referenced at all in any way to Navarro's own investigation, because at least with when she was talking to Annie's brother, it was like, oh, it's a brother. We know that there's a history there. But this woman just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, we're like, who is this lady?
Yeah. And
Where
then
did she come
during
from?
this conversation, she's like, yeah, I was dating an engineer. It turns out that Annie had the swirl on her back because she couldn't stop dreaming about it.
Do you know what it means? She dreamt it. We're in high school. Bunch of times.
Yeah,
Don't make
that's
that
true.
the origin of the swirl, please. It had
Yeah.
a way cooler meaning before
Like,
this.
it has to have something more than that. There has to be like a reason she was dreaming it or something. It can't just be that, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's why
Oh,
I'm
and the
right.
dream stopped apparently after she got the tattoo, was the other
Right.
reveal that we get.
She got the tattoo, the dream stopped.
I'm really leaning towards more of a supernatural presence in this season, and maybe more of I don't want to say exactly like The Thing, but something along those lines. And I don't know if they're really going to go in that direction or not, but it just seems, especially this episode, it's really leaning that way in my opinion. And unless like people are just tripping because of the water supply or whatever, maybe there's a logical explanation, but that's the way it seems to me right now. It's really heavily leaning that way.
Because I remember even people in the comment section were saying that, oh, there's probably something in the water, and that's why all these people are seeing these things or claim. But again, it still doesn't explain the people like Rose who have been seeing spirits for years. Yeah, I agree. Before it was like you could give or take the supernatural part with the first 2 episodes, but
Sure.
they're really leaning into it now.
Yeah.
Really leaning into it.
Yeah, that's where my mind was this whole time. Really, it was.
Which like
Okay.
isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, I'm
Like-
not happy with where they're taking it so far.
So like we're at the midway point. There's only 3 episodes left. Next week's preview looked interesting. So I think it'll start to really kick off, but I said that last week. Hopefully this time it
God, I
really
really
does
hope
start to pick up. Okay, so here's where this comment, Navarro and Danvers, they're in the car. They're driving to go see Hank. And Navarro's saying it's the mines, they're behind it. They did it. Annie was protesting them. They had a reason to want to harm her. They're behind it. And then Danvers is like, well, half the town works there. So that means half the town would have a reason to kill her. And are the mines responsible for Clark too? Why would they want to get him involved? Some people think he's a suspect. Maybe he's not a suspect. What's going on with that? But then they're talking about Tinder and all that shit. And she says,
I take some personal trips. I don't fuck where I eat.
and then Navarro says back to her,
You mean anymore? Fuck you.
this is where I'm going with this. Someone in the comments said that they think Navarro and Danvers used to have a thing romantically together. Do you see that?
I
at all?
could see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I
After
could
that
absolutely
conversation
see
in the
that.
car, yes.
Yeah.
The way she was like anymore. What are you saying anymore?
Instead of just, making her maybe a bit of a hard ass or a bit of a stickler, they keep leaning into this, well, she's fucked everyone. And there's even a Mrs. Robinson joke about her and young Pryor in this episode too. It was just odd. It's just unnecessary. It's a very poor way to
Yeah.
develop Danvers as a character. That's all.
Yeah, well, and just
I
going
agree.
back to the point that maybe they had a romantic fling and that had something to do with the relationship really being fractured, because earlier we heard when they were going through the evidence, she was like, "Are you still seeing Kavik or are you back to girls now?" They're kind of like,
Wait, she said that?
yeah, I'll clip it in.
Oh, she
Yeah.
did?
You still fucking that dog runner, bootlegging guy, Kavik? Are you back with girls?
Oh, then they
missed the-
definitely had a thing.
Yeah, I
yes.
missed the and girls part.
Yeah,
Oh my
no, I missed that
goodness.
thing. I missed that too.
They both threw a shot at each other, hinting towards
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, they definitely, yeah, they were
possible
definitely.
relationship.
The conversation in the car then makes a little bit more sense.
Whoever commented that, there was only one person that said that. Congrats. I'll try to find it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I will. There's been a bunch of comments. Thank you guys so much for all the comments. But yeah, whoever said that, great job. So I think you're right. Okay, so then this is when we get to the part where Navarro confronts Hank about not reporting Annie K and Clark's relationship.
You received a direct call about Annie K's and Raymond Clark's relationship. A direct call.
Because we knew he had that knowledge. And he says, well, she was banging everyone. What do you want me to do? We don't know if that's true. We just have to take Hank's word for it
Yeah.
at this point. Hank, clearly shady, clearly hiding something. You know what? I don't know. Why? I don't know. Maybe he has the people in the mines paying him. Who knows why he's hiding something, but he's definitely clearly hiding something. Why was he
Yeah,
so mad
yeah.
about his son getting the Annie K files over to Danvers in the first place? Whatever. So tempers flare, words are said, and then it ends with Danvers splashing a coffee in Hank's face and tell him to fuck off and go back to work. And then Navarro's pissed off and she walks off. Yeah, that doesn't go well. And then we find out that the forensic tech got delayed again due to weather, due to snow, a blizzard. And Pete says his cousin is a vet and he can come help. So that's going to be cool. And I actually like his little scene. Navarro goes to see Kavik and he's ice fishing. She asks if he knew Oliver. He'll ask around for a price. He wants to know something personal about Navarro, and then he'll find out.
Thing is, I know you know someone who knows someone.
It's called quid pro quo. You tell me something, I tell you something.
She storms off. She comes back, and then he asks about her mom. We find out she's from Boston.
She left when she was 15, met my dad in Boston. Boom. Now get me to Gok.
Her mom took them and ran because their father was a piece of shit, apparently, but the mom wasn't okay mentally, and it's kind of been passed down generationally to Jules, and that's how she's acting out right now and having her own problems.
She was not okay. She
Like Jules?
So yeah, one day they ran away and never came back. When they got to Alaska, her mom was killed, and the killer got away with it. He was never found. So another cold case that we find out about. So then we have another spot about the mines possibly poisoning the water supply, and there's a rally protest about it. Leah's there with her girlfriend. Okay, Tuttle, Vex, you have anything on this? I wrote in my notes, Vex, Tuttle, anything connection here? No.
There were literally no season 1 connections in this episode whatsoever.
Maybe Tuttle could be involved with the mines, anything
Well, it's
like
just like
that.
you could just think it's kind of the lobbyist kind of thing, right? It's like all these people are paid to be there, but it's very clear given the kind of townspeople that we're seeing that this is a genuine and a little bit more organic of a movement. I imagine in the next episode, maybe we'll find out more because we know that Annie was literally sleeping with the enemy. But I didn't get anything from this. All I know is just the last 2 episodes, they just said there were protests about the mines, but we don't actually see any signs or flyers around town.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden there is this rather big gathering now happening, and it's a protest and they're handing out t-shirts. It kind of comes out of nowhere because again, I hate to say it, it's just this little town that is supposed to be so isolated. I don't really know this town very well. I don't understand these people. I don't understand what's bringing them together. I don't understand why they're there.
Because they don't give you any of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm very disappointed because like there's a very huge missed opportunity to create a really nice, tight, and interesting environment. It's this as an isolated community. You guys have 2 unsolved murders that we're aware of now. People are out here just like hooking up with 18-year-olds and then beating them to death. The scene afterwards, Leah comes home, right? And then Danvers is like,
wipe off
that
shit's coming off.
And she's like, oh, because she had the t-shirt, and she's, oh, what were you doing there?
No. Are you insane? Do you know what happens to those people? I'm not insane. I just
fucking care about this place, all right?
And I'm just thinking this whole thing. So, now it finally kind of explains itself inadvertently why Danvers is so against Leah having the
Yeah.
markings, because Annie K had
And
them, and Annie K,
yeah.
All
got
right.
murdered and
Okay.
whatnot,
All
right?
right. Yeah.
But at the same time, now you're not being a very good mother, because you could just sit down and be like, hey, like Annie K was into this stuff and she had the markings. That's why I really don't want you to have that.
Right.
Which would
Right.
make more sense than her just trying to get Leah to hate
Y-
a big part of
Yeah,
her heritage.
yeah, but
Yeah,
of
sure.
course, Danvers doesn't know how to talk about her feelings, so she can't just be like, "Hey, I don't want you to end up like her. That makes me nervous. I don't want you to be a target.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
let's not do that."
Also is very weird, because in the same episode, during the scene where they go talk to the hairdresser, Danvers takes like the little kid. It's like, oh, do you know who that unicorn is on your shirt? That unicorn likes like mac and cheese.
Yeah.
Let's go tell stories about mac and cheese. And you know how to comfort, you know how to talk. So why is this not coming across even with your own brood? And a missed opportunity as well to explore Danvers a bit more, because maybe the trauma of losing her son and her husband is why she has all this animosity, sort of.
And
Yeah,
it
towards her
probably
stepdaughter.
is.
she's always a dick towards Leah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. I didn't put together that why she wanted her to
Yeah,
take
that
it off so
finally
much.
explained it for me. But again, it just felt like you're going from 0 to 100 a little bit by just kind of blanket
Yeah.
assuming that your stepdaughter having any involvement with her heritage means that
Right,
she's probably
right.
marked for death.
Navarro's out on the ice. She thinks she sees something on the ice. Again, another supernatural type of thing. I don't know if she was just envisioning something or whatever. She falls and hits her head, and then she has a vision of a kid holding a one-eyed polar bear.
I mean, there's a little bit of a tie-in. Danvers and Navarro are talking about what they do in their spare time in the car, right? And Danvers is like, I go fuck dudes off Tinder. And Navarro's like, I pray. She's like, oh, you talk to God? And she's like, oh, I listen. And then coincidentally, she seems to go and knock her head on the ice. And then she sees an apparition or a ghost of some kind, and she just listens. So I just thought that was interesting. Maybe she's a bit like how Rose was saying that there's people that are born with it. Perhaps Navarro is this more clairvoyant being as well. That would explain why she found her mother's chain in her car the last episode.
Right,
On
right,
top
right.
of that, I want to know more about how close the relationship was between Danvers and Navarro, and if Navarro recognized that that was Danvers' son.
Right.
In that,
Yeah, yeah.
This is when Navarro gets a call about her sister Jules.
She started screaming that someone was coming, and she was praying. She just started praying.
She had an episode and ran off. Navarro knows where to find her.
That's also not really explained, by the way, either, why she walked out to a boat and why it's so important that it's looking out on the sea. But I imagine that's because we'll probably see that character end her life in the next episode or two. I really think she's gonna go die before the season ends.
You think Jules is done for?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Probably.
Yeah.
She's not in a
That's
good
sad.
place. Yeah.
Sorry, Jules.
When Navarro throws the orange out, right, it comes back to her. Yeah, in the previews, though, we know that somehow Jules sees the same ball because it rolls between her feet. My prediction is that probably whatever forces are at work / the forces that Jules can kind of see are going to come for her, and she's going to end up walking back out on the ice, probably in her pajamas or something, and will end up, offing herself.
That's going to be sad.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see. So then Pete goes home and he's having kind of a semi-tiff with his wife Kayla about his, being so busy, but he's in the middle of a case right now. So like, come on, cut him some slack. Kayla, what she was bitching about, Danvers taking priority, and then she called him and then texted him in caps, did you find Oliver yet? Then we're in 1223, the 6th day of night, and there's a gathering wake situation for the stillborn baby that we found out earlier. Danvers goes and she turns on the water and it was black. So that's another thing with the water being poisoned, possibly. And then probably my favorite scene in this whole episode was when the vet gets there, Pete's cousin Vinny. So he has some speculation. He's just a vet, but he says,
I think they died before they froze. Those guys, this is not how you die in the cold.
And then he guesses that they died from cardiac arrest because he's seen caribou die of plain fright, and the scientists look the same. And then Danvers says,
I think you could do just like a tiny bit of postmortem. Chief. I'm just kidding. That would be super illegal.
I actually thought that was funny. That part made me laugh.
That was kind
That
of
was
funny.
a little joke. Yeah, I like that too.
And then Navarro found Oliver thanks to Kavik. That guy works fast.
I found him.
He's living in a nomad camp on the North Shore. So what do? They go to his location and they ask the people there his whereabouts. They point to his house. They say, I don't know if he's home, but right there. And they knock on his door. He won't answer, but they realize that he is home. So they break in and he's just sitting there with a gun, not looking like he wants to talk to anyone. They ask about Annie. He won't help. But then when he learns that the scientist from Salal died, his tune changes a little bit.
Your ex-colleagues, they're dead.
He didn't know, and he specifically asks about Lund, the only guy who survived for now.
Lund is dead.
He seems like he's about to be more willing, and then they try to pry on Annie a little bit more, and he pulls his gun on them and tells them to leave.
Go now.
So the conversation with Oliver. So remember that this entire series opened with a guy right like on the last day of sun, and he's out tundra and he's got a gun aimed at a herd of caribou, and those caribou end up running off a cliff.
Yeah.
Just a little. So that seems to have been a bit of foreshadowing. I can't remember though. Is that Oliver also in that opening scene, or is it a different guy? Because also what the vet says is like, oh, I've seen caribou jump off of cliff out of fright or something like that.
Right.
Yeah,
Like,
sure,
oh,
yeah.
you know, it's a coincidence, right? So I'm just, is that, if anyone remembers in the chat, maybe just let us know. Is it the same guy from that very opening scene in episode 1?
I'll pull up a clip, put it side by side. We'll see. See if we
Okay,
can
yeah.
see if we can figure that out. That'd be interesting. So then they get the call about Lund. He's had multiple amputations, lost his eyesight, part of it or all of it. He comes in and out of consciousness, but they're able to ask him what happened, and he says,
I woke her. Now she's out. She's out there in the ice.
so he's all totally freaked out, but then a fight breaks out in the lobby. What the hell is going on out there? And people calling each other hicks, and they're fighting, and cops are fighting, and chaos. And while this happens, Lund creepily rises. Another supernatural possession part of this episode. He rises up and he says,
Hello, Evangeline. Your mother says hello. She's waiting for you.
and then he starts convulsing and dies. What the hell? Did he say that at all, or did she envision that? What is happening?
That's why I think maybe there's more supernatural than just, oh, people are all messed up because of the water kind of deal, because that's a really specific and interesting scene to have. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's not sort
Yeah.
of at least leaning
I
into the
agree.
supernatural.
What is that? What was that? It was so confusing.
That was weird, but that's also the most interesting thing that's happened in this entire series so far, in my
You
opinion.
think? Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not leading into the supernatural, then it's definitely going the way of mental health issues.
Yeah. Or
That's
people
like the
just
only other
tripping.
thing I can think of.
But like
People
Navarro
tripping
isn't
out.
really showing signs of that so far. We know that she's a little bit standoffish, but again,
Yeah.
that makes sense because she had a crazy mother, an abusive dad, and her sister is
Yeah.
on the verge of freezing herself to death, basically.
So, final scene in the episode. Pete has cracked Annie's phone, and here's what we see on the phone.
I found it. It's here. I found it.
What do you guys make of that? She was screaming. She found it, and then she starts screaming in horror, like she sees a ghost or a creature. Another supernatural part of
Something
it.
definitely attacked her.
Something attacked her. What did you make of that, Jules, Vex? Anything?
What?
'Cause
I mean,
just
it has to be
confused me.
linked to she's awake. You know what I mean? Whatever this
Sure,
thing
yeah.
is, it has to be the same creature that attacked Annie.
Well,
Yeah.
for two things. A, we all knew it was going to be that kind of video on the phone. I mean, come on.
Come on.
But also B, it's like, oh, my name is Annie K and I finally found it. I'm just,
My name is Annie. Go talk. If anything happens,
oh, that's why they cut off her tongue, to keep her silent.
Yeah.
Right? But that still doesn't explain why it was found under a table at the lab. I saw in the preview for next week, there's stuff in the background that they pull. So again, leaning very heavy into the, because as the video keeps playing, you keep hearing Annie. So again, that feels more supernatural than just, someone doing their thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's what we had for this episode. So let us know what you guys thought. What did you pick out? What did we miss? Is there anything that you can add to the supernatural talk specifically so we can talk about that in a future theory video? Let us know any of your comments and we'll read them on screen when we make that video. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Hopefully it gets better. I think next week I have high hopes that it's going to be great. But that'll do it for this week. Thank you so much for watching and we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye, guys.
She heard voices. She had episodes. Same thing
Totally
with
missed
Jules.
that.
Same thing with... Wait, what happened?
When you said pass it on to Jules, I said,
Oh. Oh, this looks so dumb. See how this is like...
I didn't even notice it in all honesty.
It looks so dumb. All right, that's an outtake. What is going on? Just look normal.
just look normal. You look great, Dan.
All right, here we go.
Look at your hands. Why are you doing that?
I don't know. I have mental problems.
Same. All right, everybody look normal.
Who the fuck is on Tinder and Ennis?
Now let's go get this fucker.